So we've got this low poly model. I've gone ahead and sculpted a very high poly model of this. So let's just go ahead and open that and take a look at it really quickly. Open up the Demon high-res model. And this model right here is about 2.4 million polygons, if I remember properly. And it was sculpted using Clay Tool software from Sensible. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at that, but we're starting to make use of the Clay Tools haptic sculpting system. You can see that down on the show floor at booth 1360. We've been working very closely with them. One thing about generating very, very high detail models is that, for instance, in Clay Tools, you can model a model using 20 million polygons if you want to, 10, 20 million polys without too much trouble. If you were to attempt to bring that many polys into Max in one chunk, you're going to have problems loading it into RAM. So a little tip for you guys is if you've got very, very high detail models, you want to split those models into chunks of about 2 to 2.5 million polygons and then bring them in separately. And then you can just add all of those objects in the projection list and just render them simultaneously so that you don't have any seams. I'm just going to go ahead and turn off display as box for a second. We're going to see what happens here. So it's going to take a moment for the view to redraw. You can see how dense that model is. So here's our really high detail sculpted model that was created for that demon out in Clay Tools and imported back in. Let's take a look at the poly count. So we've got just about 2.2 million polygons sitting in the scene right here. If we can orbit around that a little bit so you can see it from another angle. There we go. So once Max catches up. It's interesting to note that 2.2 million polygon model display, viewport display is very, very fast. But if I were actually to attempt to model on this, I'd have some difficulty. So just a tip for you guys, what we've found at High Moon Studios is that we can get about 12 to 15 million polygons into a Max scene before we start to have problems just because we don't have enough RAM. But we can only bring those in chunks of about 2.5 million polygons, so just so you know that. Let's flip back to the, let's open up the next version of this, which is what we've done is we've outputted this 2.2 million poly model, and then I've also outputted a lower detail version of that model. And this one is, I think, right around 70,000 polygons. Okay, so 70,000 polygons. So we basically just use the decimation algorithm in Clay Tools to kind of decimate that down and give us a lower poly version. And the reason that I've outputted two models from Clay Tools is because I'm actually going to use this 70,000 poly model as my sanity check to fit my cage to, and then I'm going to use the 2.2 million poly model to actually render the normal map from. So I don't want to have that 2.2 million poly model actually visible in the scene while I'm working because it will slow things down quite a lot. So let's go ahead and open the demon projection. Actually, I started in Max. The question was, did I model this to approximate the shape in Max? The pipeline that that I actually used for this demon model was I actually started in Max, blocked in my low-res shape, took that out, exported it as an OBJ, brought it into the Clay Tools modeling system, used that system to sculpt out the high detail mesh, and then brought in a sanity check just to kind of make sure that I didn't change that model too much so that I could refit it back to that. And then I also use that 70,000 poly model to kind of fit my projection cage too, and I'm going to show you that process right now. So let me open up the, this is actually a scene that's got everything set up for me, so I'm just going to go ahead and skip back to the low poly daemon. And I'm going to merge in the medium poly. So you can see how closely those two approximate one another.